Hey, so in this session, we're going to talk about how to handle hecklers. If somebody's in your audience and they're kind of challenging you, these are some simple things that you can do. Now, before I actually get into the strategies for handling a heckler, one of the things I want to caution you on is there's a big difference between somebody who has a legitimate question and then somebody who's trying to test you or someone who's heckling you. So just keep in mind that anytime somebody asks you a question doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying to challenge you. It doesn't mean that they're trying to cause problems for you. A lot of times it's a legitimate question. And in those kind of situations, just answering the question is a whole lot better than the tips I'm going to give you here. However, if when the person asks you those challenging questions, you can tell by the tone that they're using that they're trying to put you on the spot, then a few of these tips may really help. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to kind of flush out exactly what the question is. And sometimes that takes a little bit of people skills. So when somebody is challenging you with a question, a good thing that I like to do anyway is I like to ask them what the purpose of the question is. So I'll give you an example. I was teaching a program a couple months ago in Houston, and there were a number of people in the audience. There were three managers, three people in the audience who were of equal kind of stature in the room, and each one of them had a second, a number two in the room as well. So the way that the company was set up, it was real easy for me from the outside to see that the folks who were in the room, there were kind of cliques. There was competition going on to see who could remain in control in the room. And a lot of times it took the form of the folks who were in the second position underneath the big managers. So in one of these situations, one of the number twos kind of asked me a really difficult kind of question. And of course I know the answer to it, and it's going to be easy for me to answer the question for him, but I knew that was probably just going to lead to more follow-up questions, going to lead to more kind of challenges. So all I did was just kind of pause just before I was going to answer the question. I said, hey, just out of curiosity, why are you asking that question? And then I just shut up and let the guy talk. And the first response that he gave me was kind of a superficial response, didn't really tell me a whole lot. So all I did was just kind of probe a little bit more. Hey, tell me more about what's going on here. And basically it started a discussion in the room that made it to where it kind of flushed out the challenge that was underneath the surface. So me answering the question wasn't nearly as valuable as getting the underlying cause out in the room. So that's the first thing. First thing is to kind of flush out the real challenge by asking a question like, so let me ask you, why are you asking that question, right? So those things can really help. The second technique that I use a lot is using kind of an audience participation question. And this is where a lot of times the folks who are being hecklers in the room, and usually it's only one or two at most, but a lot of times they just like to hear themselves talk. So if I give them an opportunity to kind of to tell the audience their opinion, a lot of times it makes them feel better, and I can kind of put that to rest very early in the program. So basically what I'll do is I'll just ask an opinion asking question. Hey, just out of curiosity, why do you guys think blank, right? And I'll just kind of lay that out there. And then as I'm getting responses, I'm using that as a way to tailor my content. Now, this is a pretty elite kind of skill in teaching and training and presenting. And I have a whole blog post on the Fearless Presentation site about this that we'll link to in the notes underneath the video. But it's a really good technique because it helps get that person that's heckling you to kind of voice his or her opinion. And as a result, a lot of times they feel satisfied and the heckling will kind of diminish pretty dramatically. The third one is one that I don't use nearly as much because of my temperament. It's because I'm kind of blunt with my audiences, because I'm kind of what some people will call bold, I guess. I have a more difficult time with this one, but if you have a softer kind of demeanor, then you'll get some great value out of this. When somebody asks you a question, a lot of times we think that we have to respond right away. In reality though, if you pause and just kind of stare right at that person for a fairly lengthy period of time, at least until folks in the room start looking at that person. That uncomfortableness that that person will feel will kind of shift the tables on them, and then respond, then answer your question. Sometimes they may be a little more cautious in interrupting you again. Now the fourth one, this is the one I use most often. This is the major technique that I use when I'm dealing with not only hecklers but legitimate questions as well. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll respond with an example or a story related to that question. So somebody's asked me a very difficult question, and I'll try to think in my head, what's an example that, from my own personal experience, what's an example that I can use to better explain my answer? And a lot of times the story may take the form of a 20-second explanation, a 30-second explanation, a 1-minute explanation, or if I'm have a longer period of time to talk, sometimes I'll go a full 1.5 to 2 minutes. But in reality, all I'm doing is trying to get the people in the room to kind of picture the solution or picture the answer that I'm giving to them in their heads. And the best way to do that is to just kind of tell an example or a story related to that. And once I do that, by the way, it kind of diffuses a lot of the tension that's in the room. People will kind of be on my side if I'm entertaining, if I'm captivating them with an example or a story, especially if they're learning something from that story. So now, once I finish that example, I'll finish up with a piece of advice or the actual answer to the question, tell the audience how they're going to benefit from that answer, and a lot of times that will diffuse the heckler pretty dramatically. The neat thing about this particular technique that I absolutely love is that when you use it effectively, when you get really, really good at using this technique, even if the person interrupts you a second time or a third time, and they're trying to put you on the spot again, what you'll tend to find is that the other people in the audience will actually come to your defense. Your audience will actually kind of defend you as the speaker, which is a fantastic thing when it occurs. By the way, this is the technique that we teach in the 2-day Fearless Presentations class. So if you want to get really, really good at using this particular technique, just go to fearlesspresentations.com for details. So thanks for watching this tip from Fearless Presentations. If you're interested in our programs, make sure and go to fearlesspresentations.com. Thanks a lot.